Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Kamishore, and today we're going to give a quick recap of the day's games in Baseball Maelstrom. Decided to do videos maybe, once every real week, which is about a one game day, to kind of give an overview of the games that went on that day and give you a little bit of an update. We begin with something that the rare occurrence, something that happened very interesting. First of all, a big shout out to Bill Carroll over on the Payoff Pitch Facebook group. Um, he uploaded a pregame um, pregame chart for pregame events, and this is actually kind of fits the scratches the itch that I was hoping to scratch um, in terms of adding in cases where players get rested and other odd things that may happen that could affect the game. Um, so this is the chart that he put out, and I highly recommend it for those of you who are playing. Maybe if you're not playing the as played lineups and that kind of thing, but if you're just playing for fun or a season, that kind of thing, you may want to use it. I started using it not at the beginning of the league, but a little ways into the league. But I've found that it really has been helpful to add in rest time and that kind of thing for players because as I've mentioned in my review of Payoff Pitch, injuries don't really happen um, hardly ever. So um, there's really nothing to prevent the starting players from just playing every game. Other than if as I said, if you're using as played lineups, that kind of thing, obviously you don't have to worry about that. But in any event, this pregame chart does provide over half the time that you use it. You roll on the chart twice, by the way, before every game. You do two checks. And about half the rolls are going to be you're going to check for rest for either the visiting or home team. As you can see, if you roll over 50, 50 to 75, you're going to check for rest for the visiting team. 76 to 100, you're going to check for rest for the home team. And the way you do that is you roll them percentage dice again to tell you what position you're going to check for, or positions, plural. And then you're going to, using the starting player's injury rating, you're going to roll again to see if they have to rest that day. So if they're an iron player, iron rated injury, or they have an injury rating of iron, then only 10% of the time are they gonna rest that day. And again, keep in mind, first you have to roll over 50%, then you'd have to roll their position when you roll percentage again, and then you'd have to roll under 10 on percentage dice in order for them to rest that day. So I like the breakdown, and I think it's pretty good. So even if you roll for rest for the home or visiting team, oftentimes you won't have to rest anybody because their injury rating and the roll that you make um, will allow them to stay in the game anyway. So, but every so often you do have to rest some players that way, which I like. Likewise, you could have home or visiting player injury where you actually roll on the injury chart, the payoff pitch injury chart, to determine not just if they miss that game, but they may miss multiple games. Um, Taking care of some personal issues. So the home bullpen, a pitcher in the home bullpen is unavailable that day. The prior one is a visiting bullpen pitcher who's unavailable that day. And then you have the visiting and home starting pitcher, either with a blister or strained hamstring. And so for that case, they're going to start the game, but at the end of each inning, you're going to roll percentage. And if it's below 15, they have to come out of the game. There's wind blowing in and wind blowing out. So if you are in a ballpark that's not domed, then this would modify the chances of getting in the wheelhouse on the player's card. Likewise, there's a chance for a soggy infield, which is reducing the double play ratings. Again, that's only a couple percent chance that that's going to happen. And then finally, there's a 10% chance that you're going to check for a rainout. The 10% chance doesn't mean the rainout's automatically going to happen. You still have to roll for it. And it's based on the month of the year and where the game takes place. So, you're going to check this twice per game. If you roll the same on the same part of the chart twice, you ignore the second result. They have to be in different rows. So that's how you use this chart. Again, I found it to be very helpful, and I want to give a shout out to Bill Carroll, who is the one that uploaded this on the Payoff Pitch Facebook page. So, how that became relevant is that we had the first case of a rainout. It happened in Oakland, which is, again, pretty rare that rainouts even happen there at all. But I went ahead and went with it. Thought it would add an interesting element to the game. And so the Oakland Jacks were hosting the Boston Splinters, and the game was rained out. The good thing for Boston in this case is that Boston has a 4-game losing streak going right now. They've dropped to 10-7, but again, I think what's interesting is it just helps you tell a story, and anything that can help you tell an interesting story is pretty good in my book. And so here we have Boston, who has a 4-game losing streak going, and the team gets an extra off day, which is good for the pitching staff. In this case, the starters aren't going to change because of they were already going to be pitching with their ace anyway. So that won't really change any. The ace will still pitch tomorrow, Gaylord Perry. But it may affect things later on in the rotation because the pitchers will have that extra day of rest. It'll definitely help with the bullpen. So now let's take a look at what that does with the schedule. What you see here is I have a schedule grid. I manually created the schedule for the most part so that teams would play each other an equal number of times in each league, no interleague play. And there would be some off days in there that can kind of add an element of, pitcher rest and different pitchers and that kind of stuff facing off against each other. So it's not always the number one starter facing off against the number one starter and that kind of thing. And we see here Boston at Oakland on the 19th, April 19th, is in orange because that's the game that got rained out. Now, I wasn't just going to play a doubleheader the next day because I thought that'd be interesting. But then when I looked later in the schedule, I noticed that, again, we wanted to redo or have another game of Boston at Oakland. The very last series of the season, is Boston at Oakland, and there was an off day right before the last 4-game series. So I went ahead and moved the makeup game to the 27th here. So instead of having that off day, Boston at Oakland will face off against each other. And so they'll actually have a long stretch without an off day here to close out the season, whereas other teams will have an off day in there. I thought that was better than doing a doubleheader in this case. So that wasn't the only interesting thing that happened this week, this day. We had the Los Angeles Dynamos totally destroyed the Houston Hoots, 14-0. Sandy Koufax got his first shutout of the season. He allowed only 6 hits in 9 innings. He's now 3-2. Not as dominant as some may expect, but still a good 2.92 ERA, which is pretty good. On the flip side, we had Randy Johnson, who got totally shelled. He only lasted 3 innings. He allowed a home run in the first to Johnny Bench, who promptly got ejected in the bottom of the first when Ryan Sandberg drew a walk, and Bench actually argued the ball call on the on the count and got ejected. So that was interesting. And then in the second inning, Chuck Klein and Willie Mays had back-to-back homers against Randy Johnson. Johnson allowed 4 more runs that inning, so he allowed 7 runs at that point. And then in the third inning, Johnny Mize and Frank Robinson went back-to-back, and Jackie Robinson had another homer. So Randy Johnson in his three innings allowed 9 hits, 10 runs, 6 homers. It didn't get much better when Rube Marquard came into the game. He came in the 4th inning. And Klein and Willie Mays went back-to-back again. And then Johnny Mize hit his second home run of the game later in the inning. So right away, Rube Marquard allowed 3 homers in the 4th inning. Interestingly enough, that was the end of the LA offense that game. Marquard got into a little bit of trouble in the 6th inning, but got out of it without allowing a run. And then Burley Grimes came in and had 3 scoreless innings to close out the game. But overall, the Dynamos had 9 homers, which the major league records in a game is 10. I think Toronto did that many years ago. So very interesting. They allowed 9, so not quite a major league record, but definitely a record for this league. 19 hits, 14 runs, totally destroyed Houston. And as I said, Koufax picked up his the shutout, so they were good. The pitching was good, the offense was good, and pretty rare to see that kind of offense in the National League in the Baseball Maelstrom, because the National League tends to be lower offense overall anyway. We had a close game between New York and Detroit, the New York Swats and the Detroit Rockets. Nolan Ryan actually outdueled David Cone to win this game. Very close game, 3-2. The Swats kind of scraped together 3 runs early on, 1 run in the first and a couple runs in the fourth, mostly on singles. And there was a double, I guess. Ruth doubled in the first run in the first, but in the fourth, a walk and a couple of singles, fielder's choice, was how they scored their runs there. And really, Nolan Ryan really was helped by Harry Heilman here in the 6th inning. He walked Charlie Blackwell to lead off the inning. Alex Rodriguez followed with a single. He got Dick Allen to fly out. And then Bobby Veach hit a single that would have scored Blackwell. Blackwell tried to score, but Heilman gunned him down at the plate for the second out. And that was key because Adrian Beltre followed with another single, and Lou Whitaker followed with another single. So they would have scored probably a couple more runs there in that 6th inning. Instead, they only scored 1 run that inning in the 6th. So that really saved things. Bobby Veach hit a homer in the 8th, but it was only the 2nd run. So New York takes it 3-2. Detroit would have at least had 3 runs, probably in that inning alone, had it not been for Heilman gunning down Charlie Blackwell at the plate. There's a little story about it there. Finally, we have the St. Louis Wizards came to Chicago to play the Chicago Docks. And Steve Carlton has been dominant in the league so far. Totally dominant. However, Chicago had his number in this one. They scored a couple of runs in the 3rd inning. St. Louis got ahead 2-0 early on. Barry Bonds tripled in a couple of runs in the 3rd to tie it up. But then in the 5th is when the floodgates kind of opened a little bit. Carlton allowed singles to Keith Hernandez, Sammy Sosa. He walked Barry Bonds to walk the bases loaded. And then Buster Posey plated 2 runs with a double. Lonnie Fry followed with an RBI single. And that was all before there were any outs. Jeff Kent dribbled one back to Orlando Cepeda at first base, so nobody scored on that one, but then Scott Rowland followed with a single, and Willie Davis followed with a single. So they were just getting a lot of base hits there in the 5th inning. When all was said and done, Chicago scored 6 runs in the 5th inning, batted around, and took an 8-2 lead into the 6th. They would score a couple more runs off of Warren Spahn in the 7th inning. Keith Hernandez had a 2-run homer. So Steve Carlton had his first bad start, which even allowing 8 runs, his ERA is still 2.41. Curt Schilling, on the other hand, had a great game. 7 innings pitched, allowed only 4 hits, 2 earned runs, struck out 6. So Chicago took this one 10-3. It's only St. Louis's 3rd loss of the season. They're now 15-3. And as I said, Steve Carlton's first loss, he's been 3-0 up to this point. If we look at Carlton's games, he's actually faced Chicago 3 times now. The first game, he allowed just 2 earned runs in 9 innings. That one went extra innings, and St. Louis won that one. And then he allowed 1 earned run in 8 innings against Houston in his second start. And then his next 2 starts, he had complete game shutouts. 1 against Chicago and 1 against the Dynamos. So he was coming into this game off of, I think, more than 20 straight innings of no runs allowed, and then entered this game and just didn't have his stuff this one. So pretty interesting. Still a great start to the season for him, and he's still doing great. If we look at the pitching leaders, we can see that Carlton, who had been leading in ERA, the National League, and actually all of Baseball Maelstrom, he's fallen a bit down here, 241. There are actually 3 St. Louis Wizards pitchers ahead of him now in ERA. The top 2, Carl Hubble and Robin Roberts, both hovering around 2 for an ERA, which is the best in the league. And both of them are on the Wizards. So very interesting stuff. The top American League pitcher, in terms of ERA at least, is Bert Blyleven with a 2.03. So again, just a little recap of the games this week. If there's anything special that you want me to highlight in a future video, please leave a comment about that. As always, you can head over to baseballmaelstrom.com to follow the action. I do a write-up about every game, just a short paragraph about every game, and you can see the standings. You can find the old box scores and game logs, score sheets, stats, all of that stuff. You can see the promo video for the league right here, kind of the trailer for the league. But every team, I also did a roster video, so that you can kind of see the team rosters also. Obviously, you can go up here to the teams and click on a team and find the roster that way as well. You can get their roster that way. But I think the video is a little bit more interesting to watch because it includes real clips for most of the players in the league. Real video for most of the players in the league. So head over and check that out. It's right here on the YouTube channel. And, if this is something that you're interested in, you like following this stuff, give the video a like. Consider subscribing. It helps more people see it. I'm trying to just, I crossed 100 subscribers. Very grateful for that. So kind of my next goal is to get to 200 and more. So tell your friends if you have friends in the tabletop baseball area. I'm going to be doing some other videos not related to my league around distribution of ground ball outs, that kind of thing. And so if you find that interesting, that'll be coming as well. With all that said, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have a great evening.